Welcome to the Base Camp Country Podcast. This is episode number 12, and today we have our special guest with us by the name of Mike Lindahl. Mike is the co-founder of Domain Outdoors, and we're here to talk to him. He also hosts the Beers and Bucks podcast. Here to talk to Mike today, get to know him a little bit, talk to him about the Beers and Bucks podcast and Domain Outdoors. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well, Kix. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. We're kind of holiday season, but people have already kind of fast forwarded to 2025 when it comes to getting ready for hunting, it seems like. So it's perfect timing to be on.
No, we're glad to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time out to do this. We also have co-hosts with us today by the name of Mr. Patrick McFadden. How you doing, Patrick?
Really good. How about you, Kix?
Doing wonderful. And our another co-host with us today by the name of Mr. Tom James. Tom, how are you, sir?
Wonderful, guys. Thanks for having me on with you today.
You bet. Thanks for joining us. This ought to be a good episode with all four of us here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning a lot from these guys. I know Pat and Tom, so this will be fun.
Awesome. Well, Mike, talk to us a little bit about Domain Outdoors, man. I want to get to know this company a little bit. Tell us what you guys do, when you guys got started. Just talk to us a little bit about Domain Outdoors.
It was kind of started as a passion project of mine. I've kind of been in the outdoor space for a while, and Domain Outdoors is a family-owned business that we started in our basement, just working with, customers to try to improve their property and their habitat through whether it's food plots or feed or fertilizers or what have you. And it's kind of blossomed from there organically. And now we service most of the United States east of the Rocky Mountains and provide advice and education and food plot seed and attractants and fertilizers and things of that nature to the outdoor community. So it's been an absolute blessing, and it's so much fun to be able to do it, really. We've got an incredible team now of guys and gals that are way crazier about deer hunting than I am. So now it's been fun to kind of help them, reach and follow their dreams and kind of do it all together. So, like I said, I've known Pat for a long time in this space. So, it's been a lot of fun to kind of start in 2019, and here we are in almost 2025. So it's hard to believe it'll be almost 7 years since we started in our basement, but it's been a wild ride. Like I said, it was a passion project, something I love to do. No intention of being anything more than that. And, I guess people liked what we were doing, and, we're still around today to continue to provide our products to folks. And like I said, the advice and all the things that we do, we're a kind of a full circle type of company. Once you chat with us once, you become family, and people have definitely, I guess, enjoyed that type of relationship. So it's allowed us to continue to grow year after year.
I know you and Pat go way back, and you and Tom have had quite the history as well. So, Pat, what do you know about Domain Outdoors that you can jump in here on? Tell us a little bit about this company, man.
Well, I tell you what, if Mike's always the person that he'll treat you like family no matter what until you give him a reason not to, right? He's like the rest of us. But I worked with Mike as a pro staffer with a different company for quite a few years, and got to know Mike at trade shows, and we worked together. And I will tell you that there's hardly anybody that I know that is as passionate as Mike is. Mike, when he gets something in his mind, he's very self-driven. He's very conscientious about what he does. He's an awesome human being. He's a great friend. And, if he tells you something, it's you can take it to the bank. It's gospel. And he is, I knew when he started that company, of course, I knew him when he brought it up out of the dirt, and, literally, right, Mike, planting seeds and bringing it up out of the dirt. But, I knew it was going to be successful from the day one he started talking about it, just because of the type of person Mike is, and he brought his brother-in-law along with him, and Tim's he's as good as a person as Mike is. And, they just make a great team, and it's just a family-owned business. And, it's really neat to see that happen, and not some big industry that you get lost in the shuffle. That's not the type of company Domain is, and their seed products are second to no one. I planted a lot of it. The germination rate's awesome. It's just, I'm telling you, it's really good stuff. They got good apparel. Everything he does, Mike puts his hands on it. And if it doesn't suit Mike, then it's not going to go out the door. I can tell you that. From the hats to the seed, it's just the way it is. Mike's not going to sell you a hat he doesn't want to wear himself, kind of deal. So he's that guy. He's a good one for sure in this industry.
Tom,
Appreciate
tell us
that,
a little
Pat.
bit about the tell us a little bit about the history between base camp country and Domain Outdoors, if you would.
Absolutely. When we split from our sister company and we were initially formed, we felt like a good value add for our team members was to be able to connect our company with some really trusted, good valued brands in the industry and approach those folks and ask them if they would be interested in partnering with us to offer our agents. We didn't have anything in mind as far as what level of that involvement, but would you be willing to offer our agents a small, slight product discount, and in turn let us use your products and help us get some content with your material so that we can in turn put it on our social media, our videos that we're producing internally, and that level has grown incredibly. But from the very first time that Mike was asked if he would be willing to partner with us, the answer was a resounding absolutely. What can I do? And I know, if not every one of them, most all of our agents have used Domain Seed products, and they speak for themselves. I tell you, one thing that from the very day that I first heard about Mike was one of our guys was actually stopped by to see him and introduce and get to talk about things. And Mike was walking around in a shop, bagging up seed and putting on labels and filling boxes while he was talking. The guy was in motion the entire time, and he just got a very strong work ethic. So number one, he stands behind his product with a high quality of workmanship, craftsmanship. Secondarily, we all know how busy we can be, and sometimes getting questions or, hey, what would you do here? What would you do? Sometimes it gets a little bit cumbersome and it interrupts your daily flow to be able to do those things. Mike takes time to respond to everybody, answer questions, even questions that he no doubt has answered 1,000 times on how to plant this particular seed, or what would you recommend for this or that. So the second thing that Mike stands out in this industry is their level of customer service and communication is top notch. And thirdly, I might add, he's a genius at marketing because everybody enjoys the names of his seeds, the mixtures of his seeds, loves the edgy cutting sound. Some of these names are really, really cool and inspiring, but also in the quantities that they offer him to a guy that's wanting to plant a little, a tenth of an acre plot in his backyard, to watch some deer versus a guy that does multiple acres has the ability to do so and do it affordably with a very good product. So hope I didn't take too much time, but that's what I recall and remember and appreciate about Mike.
I like the big sexy, man. The big sexy, my favorite.
We named it after you, Kix. I figured you'd like it.
I don't know about all that, but you better come up with one called Big Ugly if you're going to name it after me.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate that. I didn't come on here for that sort of stuff, but I do appreciate the kind words. And the beauty of kind of doing things your own way is that you get to do all those things. You don't have a board of people telling you that you're not making enough money or you're doing this or doing that. You kind of get to do things the way you want to. And that's the best part. We simply try to help our customers, whether it's Tom that plants 1 million acres or Bob that plants 0.1 acres. We treat them the same way. So that's just how we do things. So that's the beauty of it. Now, I mean, with that said, we sell seeds. So inherently, we need to answer questions, provide as much detail and information as possible, because even with all the information, people are still going to have issues. So that's where we are even prouder of how we follow through on working with customers, and is the ones that respond negatively, because we get those too, just like anybody else, but we answer their questions and we take care of them. And that's, we take pride in that. We always say people over profits. It's kind of how we do things. So that's what we stand by.
Smart way to run your business, man. Talk to us a little bit about how this company got started, man? What made you decide to jump into the seed business of all things?
Well, yeah. I mean, Pat can vouch for he and I logged thousands of miles together on the show circuit. You know, we were the offensive linemen, if you will. We were in the trenches every single weekend, working for another company. Kind of, you know, we probably what did we do for like 4 or 5 years? Travel all over the country, and I absolutely love, for some reason, I love obviously hunting, but I love the process that gets you to that moment of truth. And planting food plots is something I've done for, gosh, probably almost 15 to 18 years now. And like I said, I work for another company and kind of got, you know, fully ingrained in it, from the growing side to the, you know, every part of it. Working with a bunch of agronomists who are far smarter than I am, and just fell in love with everything about it. And it's a lot like, I love to golf. I love to hunt. I love to do things where you're always chasing perfection and it doesn't exist. And food plotting is the same exact thing, or same exact way. I mean, it's never perfect, and you continue to chase it and grind it out and chase it and chase it. And it's like a dog chasing his tail. You get closer, you're never going to get there. And I've always been addicted to that type of thing. And for me, it's, you know, food plotting and habitat management and that process. And through Domain, I get to witness other people experience that. And that's even more fun now than me doing it, where Pat comes to me and says, "Oh man, I had a terrible year. My plots are terrible," and yada, yada. And we start to talk and chat about, you know, what Pat did and what Pat didn't do. And 5 years later, Pat calls me and says, "I'm planting 50 acres of seed and I'm shooting 170-inch deer." It's like, "Thank you." And it's like, whoa, I didn't do anything. Like, I just gave you the tools and you did it. So now I've kind of converted to like, that's my new, you know, passion of why I like to do this. And it just continues to evolve every year as we grow and our team grows, and we keep doing things better. So I don't know where I was going with that rabbit hole, but yeah, that's kind of how it all evolved, and how Domain was born, and we continue to, you know, try to push the envelope in what we do.
Awesome, man. So what's your crew looking like these days?
Whew, it's getting bigger and bigger. That's crazy when I take a step back and look out in the warehouse nowadays, and it's not just me in there anymore. I've got there's 8 full-time employees, so and then I've got about 6 college kids from the local school here that it's fun to watch them. Those guys, I mean, the amount of deer that these guys and gals killed this year is fascinating. I mean, they're so passionate about hunting, and it's fun to be able to, I mean, looking back 20 years when I was in college, I wish I would have had a place like this to come work and hang out and talk about deer hunting. But I have an incredible team. That's the reason we're successful. They're incredible. Work ethic, human beings, hunters, dads, moms, whatever. So, that's what gets me up every morning. So it's a lot of fun.
Can you explain to us why testing your pH in your soil is so important when it comes to food plotting?
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I'm sure you've all experienced. I know Pat has. I can't speak for the rest of you. Just through experiences he and I have shared. While it might be the most important step, it's also the step that is least likely for the customer to take, at least initially when they enter the space, because it costs money and it doesn't make sense. It didn't to me either when I started. Why does that matter? Who cares? But I always say, like, the soil test gives us a foundation. It gives us a baseline of what we're working with. It explains why it does or doesn't work, which for me is extremely helpful, because if something doesn't work, I want to know why. I don't want to just blame it on the guy that planted it or the seed or whatever. I want to understand why. And testing your pH gives you kind of the why, whether it's pH levels or nutrient levels, organic matter levels, CEC, whatever it might be. It kind of gives you an understanding of what you're working with. And then as a customer, you can decide, okay, do I want to just go with what I've got, or do I want to, invest in some resources to improve those things? And typically that takes some time. The customer typically, I don't want to, like I said, me included, year one, I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to plant my stuff. And then I'm going to come back to Mike at Domain and be like, boy, Mike, it germinated well, but then it just didn't grow very well. What happened? I said, well, let's take a look at the soil test. Well, your pH is low, your nutrients are yada, yada, yada. So then we can start to build that soil up. And at the end of the day, the natural progression of a customer, me being the customer, is every year I add steps or add to the process and eventually get my soil where I want it. So it's thriving. And that's just the natural progression. Like anything in life, every step costs more money. And sometimes we need to do it the wrong way in order to understand why we do it the right way. And in other cases, folks will just jump on board and get their soil tested and amend their soil and add fertilizer and things take off. But it's the most important step. It's the first step. And it gives us all a baseline and how to be successful, whether it's immediately or eventually. And depending on where you're in the country, sometimes, you're just blessed with good soil, like that Mississippi River Valley, blessed with good soil. Or you live where I am, where the glaciers dropped a bunch of, sand and rocks, and it takes us a while to get our soil improved. But it's one of those steps. It's actually one of my favorite steps because it's one of the quickest ways to help a customer, and really help improve their property just by knowing what they're working with. And then from there, what can we do to amend it over time, whether it's through plants or through amendments as far as lime or fertilizer or both. And then from there, we can build a plan and work together to improve their property and eventually turn that property into a domain, that's our goal. That's the progression we try to take customers through.
Tom, you want to jump in?
Yeah, you probably saw me jonesing ready to comment. Speaking from the perspective of an older guy, the progression of a landowner or a land manager, you find yourself caring more and more about your resources that you have under your control. And to Mike's point, it may sound weird to want to be a good steward of your dirt, of your soil, but that is absolutely what happens over time. Once you begin to understand that plants are a transfer agent of the nutrients into the soil that are uptaken by your wildlife, that you want to try to make that soil as ice cream of a dirt as you possibly can and be at all the macro and micronutrient levels, the pH and all the organic matter and all those things that matter. You want to bring all those numbers up to perfection. I will be honest with you, in the last 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, it's been very expensive on fertilizer, just with the input cost of anything that was refined or created or inorganically had some high cost to it, whether it be the trucking that brought it to the plant, whatever, all those costs went up. So if a guy were just to go into the co-op local farm store and buy a 25-pound bag of triple 12, 5 years ago, it was $8 or $10 and it was $25, the last couple of years. So as important as it was or is the soil is probably the most important thing that we manage on our farm. It's also the easiest one to skip steps on. So anybody that cut it short and didn't put their fertilizer down, or, a lot of guys will add pelletized lime annually just to try to keep that pH level climbing and working on that as they go. Some of those times, and I think I'll put myself in that category. I cut back a little bit this year. One of the key things that I missed, I'm sorry, I'm talking about my own story here too much, but is that I didn't get nitrogen on my corn in time. And right now I'm kicking myself in the butt because my ears didn't really develop as good as they should have later in the season. And I've got less food in that big 2-acre cornfield than I normally would have. So you kind of want to correct your course of the steps that you skip, whether that you couldn't afford it or you didn't understand the process, why it's important. As you get some age to you and you start to feel more respect and responsibility for the ground that everything grows from, you want to just take care of the dirt as well as you do with your trees and shrubs and water and plots and warm season grasses and everything else that goes in with it. So it's a labor of love, and it's kind of like a nerd camp for us guys that do it.
Yeah, both those guys are absolutely correct. When Mike and I worked shows and people would come up and, trying to buy some seed, or they'd come up year after year, right? Because we work the same shows every year, and they'd say, hey, this certain plot mix, or it just didn't do good. And said, well, did you take the soil test like we asked you? Well, no, I didn't do that. And then so we hear that a lot. And then some of those people, we would talk it in or sell them one of our little strip tests, and they would go and get some close, and they would pelletize and so on and so forth. And then a year or two goes by, year three comes back, and then next thing you know, they're like, holy cow, I can't believe how my clover's doing, and I finally got the pH right, and you guys were correct. And so, yeah, it's like both of them have said, that's the easiest step to skip. My dad and I, we've skipped it for a few years on our farm, and this year we got a fertilizer wagon in there, and we had the local co-op come out and test in a bunch of different spots, and we bit the bullet and bought it in bulk and did it the way you're supposed to do it again, But so we don't do it every year. We probably should, but like Tom and Mike both kind of alluded to, the last couple of years it's been really expensive. So hopefully that'll come down a little bit. I got to keep reminding myself I'm just growing it for the animals, and I'm not growing it to feed my family. For say I'm not farming it. So I gotta kind of weigh out the difference, and which either way, it works either way. You just some things will grow when your soil's not right. Like Mike was saying, it just doesn't grow well, or it may not grow clear to maturity. And as long as people understand that when they purchase a seed, and Mike's the type of guy that'll explain that to you, or I would explain it to you. Say, look, if you don't take the right steps, you're not going to get 100% of what you think you're going to get. So,
yeah, or we'll, as long as they're honest with us and say, yeah, I'm not going to test, then we go, okay, well, then let's look at a couple of these items over here that might actually help your soil, but also can handle some of those poorer soils. So you're not trying to grow sugar beets and 5 pH below sand, So that, like I said, I prefer you test, but if you don't, we'll at least get you down the right path of something. And then typically the next question the next year is, all right, Pat, like this did okay. How can I make it better? Like, aha, perfect. Now we've got
Yep.
you. You're on the right path. So that's the beauty of this 35-minute conversation on testing your soil, because we could talk the whole day about it.
Yeah. I'm going to send you some of this rock soil I have out here. See what you can grow. Southwest Mississippi.
Yeah.
Turnips will grow in a rock.
They'll grow anywhere. Radishes will grow anywhere. They just kind of get crooked.
Yeah.
Mike, if I may, I've got a question for you. How often do you find that the issues with your installers are the technique or the methodology? I remember back in the day when I did a lot of shows with the Ferminator, a lot of people would say that they planted clover and it never came up, or just barely came up, or they planted alfalfa or another one of the really small seeds. And if you drill them through the process and you find out and they're actually honest with you, they'll tell you that they dragged it, they disked it up, they put the seed down, they dragged it around with the
harrowed it in.
Exactly, harrowed it in. And I stopped you right there. But it seems to me that the biggest infraction or the biggest mistake a lot of those guys made, I'm sure education has come a total 180 or 160 degree, 180 was it? Yeah, 180 since then. So, but information has become so readily available now that 10 years in, you would think that the mistakes would be fewer and fewer between. But that small seeds needing to stay on the surface of a not a compacted, but a firm seed bed. And the larger seeds could tolerate some depth or require some depth to them. But is that still an issue with guys?
Yeah, and I don't think that'll ever go away. But that's why we take or go the extra mile, whether it's pre-purchase or post-purchase, or it's during the complaint, as we're trying to understand, like, hey, we're going to help you out here, but let's figure out what the cause was so we can solve it. It's part of that process. And I've fallen victim to it myself too, tiny seed, it can only bust through a 1/4 inch or less. So, and oftentimes we uncover it where it got harrowed in or dragged in. And those are, if they get to us fast enough, those are easy to solve because we can get more seed in their hand and we can do it right the second time. It's when they plant it in July and come back in October and realize it was harrowed in that we've got a problem. But yeah, those are the reasons that we go the extra mile to, whether it's, through social media or digital media or advertising or on our packaging or whatever we can do to try to mitigate some of those pitfalls. The more the customer knows, the better off they're going to be. And that one, pH testing, depth, those two, seed rate, those areas are common fails 10 years ago. Less common fails now, but still the most common fails. And then obviously Mother Nature, who we don't get to decide what she does, but we can at least take the rest of the steps appropriately. And I think that'll be something that we always work to improve on how we communicate that to the end user. The importance of seed depth with those microscopic seeds, because grandpa who worked the farm for 100 years, God bless him, he fed a lot of families, but he harrowed his seed in. So everybody harrows their seed in, and that can work on, larger seeds. But as we transition to smaller seeds, we need to be a little bit more careful or cognizant of depth. So to answer your question, we still try to work on educating and communicating it better. And I take the blame for the reason why, and we need to do a better job of explaining to customers why, so they don't make that mistake. And we keep trying to find better ways to, inform and educate to eliminate some of those pitfalls.
Yeah, one thing, if I can, I'd like to add. You hit on it there for just a second, but it's the seed rate, right? So if you think of a 1 foot square, just take a 1 foot square. There's only so many nutrients in that 1 foot square that can grow X amount of seeds, right? And so if you're buying a bag of seed that's for an acre and you put it on an eighth of an acre, those seeds are competing against one another. A lot of people, more is better. More is better. Yeah. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what you should be thinking. I was always, and when, Mike and I would work the shows, we talk about this a lot, and I'd always bring this up about your 1 foot square. But also, I always said, if you can see the clover or the turnips when you're seeding it, and you see a bunch of them on the ground, they are too thick, right? You should have to really look for a clover or a turnip seeds, so, and you'll see that in some of the turnip fields that people plant. They're so thick. I mean, it's awesome. It looks green, and it looks like a sea of green.
The green carpet.
The turnips are so close that they can't ever produce a bulb, but they do. They're size of a quarter, So, but that's just one thing I kind of want to piggyback on. That goes right with your soil test and as many nutrients that there's only so many nutrients that the seeds can get out of that dirt. So,
I think what we're talking about though is part of the fun of what we do for a living. Is that planting food plots is hard. It's hard. And there's a million ways you can mess up. So when we can do our job well enough that a customer, buys the product, plants the product, has success with the product, I mean, that feels pretty dang good for both us and them. And then we continue to, take that story and how can we replicate that 10 million more times? So, it's that's part of the fun of it for me, is the challenge of understanding how to do a better job of communicating and educating so that more people are successful.
It just dawned on me, maybe a great tool, Pat, is to show them that 1 square foot of dirt before and drop one small seed in the middle of that piece of dirt, and the next photo is that same plant at maturity in that square foot of dirt.
Taking up the whole thing.
Canopy over and fill up that whole square, right?
Yep,
absolutely.
So anything more than one seed is just competing against that other plant that you put there. So, a lot of guys do that accidentally, where they can't control their seed flow. They've run through a 1/4 acre bag of seed in the first 20 feet, and my gosh, what did I do? So they're buying more. One of those learning processes. But to your point, we've all seen the guys that post pictures on social, and it's that sea of green, and they're all 3 inches tall. And we all just cringe because we know what it's going to do in the next month. It's like, they're all going to turn purple and look stressed and because they're competing against each other.
I've been there. I've done it
for sure.
And then the next year I learned, and every year every year I learned from something I did intentionally or unintentionally. So that's kind of the fun part. I failed every way you can. So I can relate to most customers in their frustrations, because I've been there, I pulled my hair out. So, and I think being a human involves failing at things, and we can relate to customers because we've done it. We're willing to admit it. So,
And how about being a man and not reading the instructions?
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to go that far. I still don't read instructions, but yeah,
They're clearly printed on the bag.
right.
Did you read the bag? No, why?
And that's, so it's funny. The reason our packaging is the way it is, people always say, wow, your packaging is crazy. It's amazing. It's because as hunters, we're all too dang smart to ask questions. So this allows the person to buy it and go home and they can read it without anybody knowing that they actually read the instructions or asked questions or whatever. So we all fall into the same category. So we had to kind of trick each other into following the directions. So
if you want a man to read instructions, you better make a video with the instructions. Somebody telling him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I got a kind of a, what maybe, I don't know, a controversial question, maybe. You see a lot of stuff about this no plow, throw and grow, different type of stuff. Does it work?
I'm not going to say that's controversial. I'm going to say it's there's a gray area there. It's also a buzzword: no till, no plow, whatever. I think part of the issue with no plow or no till is that it misleads some people into how the product actually works. I think a no-till strategy can be wildly successful. But I also think that there's a lot of misinformation about how easy it is per se. So for instance, if you took our No BS product, which is works well in areas that aren't tilled, and just walk into a CRP field and sling it into 4-foot tall CRP grass, probably not going to be happy with the results. But that's what no till means, right? Not so much. I think it's more misinformation than it is, controversy or what have you. I think there's a lot of folks out there, especially the last few years where we haven't had rain for 40, 50, 60 days. People that have found a lot more success in scenarios where they didn't till the ground, but instead they maybe, had some grasses and they sprayed it, rolled it, seeded it type of thing, where the seeds are able to kind of be protected by the dead grasses. So they didn't till, but they, killed off the grasses per se. Those seeds found their way to the soil through some rains, were able to germinate and grow with no competition. The dead grass act as a mulch to help protect them, and all of a sudden they have a big, beautiful green plot in 4 weeks. So I think the challenge or and again, we take responsibility for some of it because it's our duty to help better educate people what actually no-till means or how to be successful in a no-till environment versus kind of what some of the buzz suggests, where you go buy a bag of seed and just chuck it out and it works. So I think we need to do a better job to advocate for it and educate on principles and how to do it. My guess is Tom and Pat could probably add a little bit more info on that too, because like I said, it can be a wildly successful strategy. And I think more and more people are at least moving to it, especially if you've got planters and drills that aid in that. So I'll let the veterans take over.
I will say that there's a huge difference of taking that bag of Big Sexy, right, and walking into the woods. Just, the soil's acidic, there's leaves all over the ground, there's shade, there's hardly any sunshine in there. And I take my rake back there and I rake out a little bitty spot. I throw some, turnip radish seeds in there, and some of it will grow, right? You're not going to have this big lush plot. And so people get disappointed in that because they think it'll grow anywhere, right? It's a no-till, no disc type of seed. And you can take that same bag of seed and you can walk out into a corn or a soybean field and you can spread that seed, with a hand spreader walking down a row and not touch that soil. And the rains, like Mike said, will plant those turnip seeds for you and the radish seeds and, the kale and such, and it'll come up within those beans and corn and you never have to touch it. And I do that every year on my beans. I'll put that a product in, Big Sexy or what have you, mainly turnips, radishes, kale, that type of thing, and my standing beans and my standing corn. So that just gives them, it just takes the food source farther into the winter, right? Once everything, they've ate every pod, they ate every soybean in the field, there's turnips and radishes to eat. And that keeps them there till February, through February, what have you. So there again, I think, like Mike said, it's an education thing. There is a place for it and it works well. It's kind of like frost seeding clover, right? You can go in and frost seed your clover when there's a snow on it. Let the snow plant it, and the freeze and thaw plant it. And there's, a clover is one of the best no-till seeds that you can use,
Yep.
So, but there again, I think, like Mike said, I think it's an education thing.
Yeah, I might just add that I like to think of that in terms of two divisions in that category. Is no-till is just it's an alternative planting method to conventional tillage, but the steps leading up to that point where the seed is going in or on the soil still had preparation done to it, and it also is on a site that is conducive to growing plants. So whether you are just spraying a herbicide and running a no-till drill, which is technically not turning the ground, but is putting the seed right into the soil for seed to soil contact, versus a disc or a rototiller that is turning the soil completely over, exposing everything, and then a seeding process, whether it's followed by a cultipacker or a drag or whatever, versus a throw and grow, which a guy buys, and he may just take a leaf blower and go into a spot where he thinks he's going to get sun and thinks that the weed competition's taken care of, where you can choose some more inexpensive on the scale of cost species that will grow on a site like that. But there is a lot of that crossover. Pat, I'm in the same camp as you. In my corn and beans, I walk on the some fall cool season annuals and put those in my over the shoulder cedar bag, and I walk them and I hand crank them on. The last 3 years here in central Indiana, beyond August 15th, we've had some very dry weather. So that's really a gamble. A lot of guys wait for right before a rain. I kind of don't have that luxury because I'm an hour and 45 from my farm, and I just got to go with the date and hope that it does rain. The years that it does, it's beautiful. So as long as the perception in their mind is that they understand at least the basic necessities of what that plant requires. Mike said a big one a minute ago: seed to soil contact. If it's laying on weed duff, if it's laying on leaves, or walk in 4-foot standing warm season grasses, chances are it's not going to do well. So expectations versus methodology versus realistic starting points, and if all those line up well, then they could, all of those things can.
I'm going to add one more point too, Kix, is that we post a ton of video or pictures and videos on backwoods food plots, and people look at them and go, "Holy cow! Like, how did you get them to grow so well?" I planted mine in August and it didn't do very well. Pat mentioned it earlier. That scenario can work really well with a leaf blower or a garden rake, but the timing needs to be right. And for us, like when you look at our videos, and we continue to educate people on this, we go in pre-leaf canopy, and we use, cold season or perennials and annuals, like different types of clovers and chicories and oats and things of that nature that will germinate quickly as soon as, soil temps rise. And the seeds and the tiny plants can actually germinate and grow with sun before the canopy blankets it, so that they've developed roots and stems, and we can get those backwoods plots in filtered light prior to, the leaf canopy starting, so that they can then last for the rest of the year. So some of the throw and grow nature of it, a lot of those are planted with rakes, can deal with Tom's point, prep and or timing, to make, so there's a ton of value in that, as long as, you've got the understanding of what, how, when, and where, as far as throw and grow, no-till. And I like how Tom, broke them in two parts, because I agree. You've got the no-till side, like what, Pat and Tom do on larger tracks, and you've got the throw and grow side, which is more hand tools, backwoods plots, semi-shade, that type of scenario. And we provide a ton of information, education, before and afters of that side of the throw and grow throughout the whole year. So check out our information. We will guide you along to help you be successful in that type of scenario. So you're not planting turnips, like Pat said, in a shaded environment in August, because then you're going to be mad at me because it's not going to work as well.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the Bucks and Beers podcast, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
You host.
Beers and Bucks. We started that probably 4 or 5 years ago during COVID. It was my brother-in-law, Tim, and I, as our way to connect with our customers and each other, back when you couldn't see people, back in that time period. And we run it once a month. Like you said earlier, I wish we could do it once a week. People are asking for it, but we kind of stuck to once a month. We run it live on Facebook, and then from there we transfer it to all the different podcast networks or what have you. And it's a good time. We have a lot of conversations with the folks that are listening and watching. It's a live feed, so what happens there is live, and like I said, we respond and communicate to a lot of people that are on it. Whether they're giving us crap, we're giving it to them, or we're talking about food plots, or we're talking about something completely random. It's just a really good time where we shed a little bit of light on, kind of what we do, but also it's a very inviting environment, so people can ask questions and we answer them. And we make fun of ourselves, and we'll make fun of you and anybody that's willing and able. It's just a really good time, and it's really grown, which again wasn't our intent. It just kind of happened organically, and now we're getting thousands and thousands of views and people asking for more. And I think podcasts have gotten to the point where it's just a bunch of experts being experts, and we took a very different approach. We took a very different approach to it. We're not experts about anything, so it's very organic and very honest, and we don't always say the right things. We don't always have the answers. We take on some controversial issues too, and we're okay with that, as it relates to, quality of your management or things of that nature, like the youth hunt and CWD and whatever it is. And we're just raw and real, and I think people appreciate that. We've actually got one on Thursday of this week, which will be our December episode. So it's a good time. Tune in. And like I said, it's also a resource where we answer a lot of questions, and we learn a lot too. It's a fun dynamic where if a person comes on and asks a question, you'll get 15 answers on there before we even touch the topic. So it's a fun community where everybody can feel comfortable asking good questions, bad questions, or anything in between. So
do you do that?
You get back with what Tom said earlier, marketing genius, right? Because Mike takes it on those beers and bucks, and that's when they introduce their new products, right?
Yeah.
They hype it up on social media. Hey, join us for beers and bucks. We got new products. We got new apparel, whatever. And, so it's a big mystery for 2 weeks, what's coming out. And then when they get there, the enthusiasm with him and Tim on there, and, people that the other guests that they have on that beers and bucks, it's contagious, right? You get on there and listen, and next thing you know, the hour's up and you've laughed and
yeah,
you're a couple beers yourself, and
you're probably going to have a few beers or some rip beers or whatever you drink, and you're probably going to laugh some, and you're probably going to say these guys are nuts, and you're probably going to say these guys are geniuses, and you're going to say, oh, these guys are dumb again. And it's just like, it's a
revolving door for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, and you're going to participate too. That's the best part. So, without physically being there, I feel like everybody that tunes in participates, because you can see it pop on and, razz us or say something or ask a question or whatever it might be. So it's, without having 300 people live screened, it's about as, collaborative as it can be.
Mike, I really like what you said a minute ago about, how podcasts have become, an expert being an expert.
Hopefully that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, but
I feel the same way, but that's why I try to do my podcast different, man. Like, I know I ask a lot of dumb questions with our guests, but that's why I do this, because I bring on the experts. I'm not an expert in anything by any means. I can sell some land. That's about it. So I like having guys like you on, guys like Pat, guys like Tom, because it helps me learn. And I'm not an expert. I'm just a podcast host, and that's why I'm here, to learn. So I appreciate all the information, man.
I'm a sponge. I don't like giving away the secrets as to why we're successful, but listening is a pretty important secret.
All right, Mike. Well, it's come that time. We're about 45 minutes into this episode, and I got one last little segment I like to do with everybody. I need you to pick a number between 1 and 3.
Oh, yeah, 2.
2. All right. I have
the
20
only one
questions.
There is.
This is a segment we like to call our quick draw questions.
Oh boy.
And I'm going to ask you 20 different questions, and your job is just to answer them as quick and fast as possible and go from there. All right?
With Pat and I both yelling at you in the background as you
Perfect.
try to make a decision.
Excellent.
Just
Let
kidding.
me get it pulled up here 1 second.
Hey, Kix, before you get started on this, I'll tell you a little fun story about Mike and I working the
Yeah.
circuit and our friend Rob. We used to stand there, and Mike was fairly new to the realm of working a seed booth, I should say, at some of these big shows, and we'd go, and you could always tell the person that would walk up there and they're not going to buy a thing, right? They're going to stand there for 40 minutes asking you 1,000 questions, and you're going to learn everything about their farm and some things you didn't want to know about their farm. And, the more of those shows you work, you could just see those people walking up. And I don't know how many steak dinners or how many beers I got off of Mike during this, because we had this little standing bet that, this guy'd walk up and they'd say, there's no way this guy's going to buy anything, so Mike would say, Pat, you're up. So I'd look over and here's this guy or gal or 2 or 3 guys walking up there, so I'd go up there and I'd start talking to them, and we start talking about the product, and they'd always ask, hey, why is your product the best? So we would tell them, and we'd go through that whole deal. And, and it was funny because before they would leave, each one of those guys would have 2 or 3 or 4 bags of seed in their hand when they were walking away. And Mike would just shake his head and he'd say, how do you do that? And I said, well, I just baffle them with bullshit, and we go through and, just got to be their friend and, just tell them the truth, just tell them straight up what it is. But it was so much fun because I could see Mike from a mile away and he'd say, well, here comes one, he stops by, there's no way you'll sell him seed. So that was a lot of fun. That was one of the fun times. Yeah.
Or I would start the conversation. You know what? Who's an expert in this? Pat.
Yeah. Yeah. He was good at that. That was a lot of fun.
What Pat never told you was Pat's technique is while you weren't looking, he'd say, hey, you see that guy behind me? He's my boss. And if you don't buy any seed from me, he's going to fire me today.
I couldn't afford to fire Pat. I've been working by myself.
All right, Mike. Well, it's that time. Quick draw questions. Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Number 1, one thing you never leave behind on a hunt.
Toilet paper.
That's a great
Yep.
answer.
Perfect.
First thing you look for in a new hunting property.
Plantable acreage.
Best way to improve soil for food plots.
Take a soil test. Start there.
You prefer to hunt solo or hunt with a group?
I'm going to make this longer. I go on 2 hunts a year. One is with a big group and the other one's by myself. And both of them are equally satisfying.
How do you get ready for hunting season?
The guys here make fun of me because I typically don't. I'm the last guy to do everything. So, a lot of mental reps.
What is the most surprising thing you've learned about deer behavior?
That it's unpredictable. I think the second you think you got the big one pegged, you're wrong.
Biggest mistake new hunters make?
Not paying attention to wind direction.
That seems to be the number 1 answer everybody says, and I tend to agree.
I mean, as a new hunter, I made a million mistakes. That's just one of them. So.
Right. All right. Most challenging hunting season you've ever had?
I guess I don't look at it that way. Every one of them has its own challenges, and that's why I enjoy it. As I get older, I put a lot less pressure on the end result and a lot more, into the path to get there. So I haven't had a bad season or a challenging season in 15 years. They've all been exceptional, and I haven't killed a ton of deer, but it's just the nature of it. As I've evolved and as these guys said, as I've matured, I guess, your things kind of change in a good way.
All right. Go-to hunting spot for bad weather.
My blind.
Another one I want to throw in here to you that seems to be a pretty popular question on the podcast is tree stand, saddle, or blind. Which is your favorite?
The young guys in the shop will probably say a saddle. And I always give them shit because I say, you guys going to tandem hunt the saddle today? Well, I'm a tree stand guy. I grew up hunting tree stands. However, I like sitting in the blind because then my old man will sit with me. So probably the blind. I also mentioned wind direction, and in a blind, I can kind of skip that step a little bit too. So
Biggest land improvement that increased wildlife on your property.
we've made a lot of them. I don't know that anyone's more important than the other. I mean, I sell food plots, so obviously I want to go that direction. But we actually did some timber work on our property and adding more stem count and making the woods a little uglier probably helped our property as much as the food we had.
Most difficult animal that you've hunted.
Gosh, the most difficult. A mature whitetail. I've hunted elk. I've hunted a lot of things, and I lied. Caribou, and not the migrating caribou. The caribou that are the resident bulls that have been hunted by every single person that's been in that freaking road. Those ones. You can't call them. You can't sneak up on them. Yeah,
Difficult hunt.
I would say a resident caribou bull are impossible with a bow. They're crazy.
Any special scent control routines that you use?
I'm old school. I don't want to get yelled at by all the companies out there, but I don't crush my stuff. I don't use ozonics. I play the wind. I always have. I grew up that way with my Walmart camo, and I've changed my camo selections, but I still play the wind. I take scent-free showers for what they're worth. That's about it, honestly.
Right.
I do a lot of urban hunting too, where I'm better off, mowing my lawn and hopping in the tree stand than I am getting ready the other way. So that's kind of changed my perspective on how things work too. But I still play the wind. That's just what I do.
Right on. Couple more here for you real quick. How has social media changed the hunting industry?
Double-edged sword. I'm grateful for it in the way in which we use it to help educate, communicate, explain. I'm terrified for it for young hunters who are growing up and that's all they see. Because when I grew up, I shot the first buck I saw and it was the best thing ever. And now if I shot that same deer, I'd probably have everyone tell me I shouldn't have. So I'm grateful that I grew up before it. But I'm grateful that it exists because of our business, and we're trying to kind of change the trend of how social media is. If you've listened to our Beers and Bucks, I've been ridiculed for talking about antler size before, and I'm okay with that. So it's a double-edged sword. Like I said, there's pluses and minuses, but I'm starting to think the minuses outweigh the pluses.
Any meat in the freezer is good meat, man.
Yeah, like I said, I got ridiculed. Sorry to make this more than rapid fire, but I got ridiculed for saying I'd rather shoot every 120, 30, 40, 50 that I see than wait for a booner. And I took heat about 10 million times for it. But what I was trying to get across was like, you can't kill a booner if you don't have one. So
Right.
having these social media expectations that if you don't kill a booner that you should just pass every deer. I would have killed one deer in 20 years. I wouldn't be hunting.
Right.
So I just think that social media has kind of made things challenging on people that are trying to get into hunting because they feel like they aren't good enough if they don't kill a big giant deer, and that's BS. So it's a tough place.
Yep. Two more for you, and then we'll be done here. Top 3 favorite social media accounts that you follow.
I don't follow. I post a family Christmas picture every year. I post my daughter hitting golf balls. And I post a deer if I kill it. Other than that, outside of Domain, I'm not on social media much.
Nice.
My buddy Kip Campbell's always fun. I enjoy his humor. So that's always a good one. Who else? I follow Pat McFadden. I saw he killed the giant the other week. So, yeah. The land ones are always fun. I like to look at land I can't afford. That's always fun.
Yep.
But there's a lot of good personalities out there. I'm just a bad person to ask.
Last question. What is your favorite food plot brand or product? Obviously, we know the brand. What's the product?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Domain on the brand. They're a nice up-and-coming company, good people, family-owned, love that. I'm a Green Machine guy. It's kind of been my go-to for the last few years. But I'm a mad scientist, so I'm never likely planting one mix by itself. I'm always I always add perennials to my annuals and play around in that regard. So
Nice.
lately it's been Green Machine and Hot Shade. That combo's been my friend. So
That's all the quick draw questions I got for you, Mike. You did a good job.
thanks, guys.
Made it through.
Sorry my answers weren't all quick, but
That's all right. Tom, Pat, last thoughts, final segments you want to do here?
I tell you what, like we kind of started out from the beginning, if you're looking for a good, honest company to buy your food plot seed from, you have questions, there's plenty of information, like Mike said, on his website to learn and ask. And if you can't learn from the videos, you can pick up the phone and call the office. And if Mike's not there, I guarantee you he'll call you back. So if you're just looking for some good information and you're not exactly sure where to start, and you want a professional opinion, Mike will say that he's not professional, but that's the farthest thing from the truth. So give Mike a call there at Domain, and he'll give you steps through it. So highly recommended.
thank you.
My closing thoughts are, you mentioned something a moment ago, Mike, about social media. And it's ironic because I just had this thought over the weekend. As you scroll today and you look as seasons wearing on and as we're winding down in most states, the propensity to see 150 to 170 and 80-inch deer regularly posted by guys that kill them across the country. Obviously Midwest is showing up the majority of those. But I worry about there being a point in time where that fails to impress us, that a big deer is just another deer. Because absolutely right, when I was starting, my heart would pound out of my chest at the sight of an antler, and it could be that big. And I worry that the young people coming up today already have fast forwarded mentally and psychologically to that point of these little things are just junk. They're not worthy of even being, looked at. So I hope that the mentors, the dads that are bringing up their sons and daughters to hunt can set those realistic expectations and show excitement at a younger deer, a 1.5, 2.5-year-old deer, that their kids are harvesting, and keep that reality grounded. Because as management has improved, the frequency of larger mature bucks is just naturally going to be higher. But I just hope that we stay grounded to the ground on that. And in closing, I don't want to sound like a walking billboard, but I know you're going to have a lot of guys and gals that follow you, Mike, that are going to watch and listen to this episode. And I may be remiss by not saying, as the national sales manager from Base Camp Country Real Estate, we are looking for great people to join our team. We've got a lot of growing to do across the states. We're in 14 states right now. So if you've ever considered a career in the outdoors, and land real estate, in the land real estate business, don't worry about experience. We'll train you. We just need the right people. And if you're passionate about land and all the stuff that we're talking about, man, we'd love to talk to you. So that's my parting shot.
And
Awesome.
if you have
Absolutely.
experience and want to change companies, come on, we'll take you.
That too. That too, but for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I truly appreciate it. And Pat, good to see you again. And
It's
Tom,
good
you
seeing
as well.
you, brother. Absolutely.
Kix, thanks for the invite. The next time
Yeah,
your list runs dry and you're at the bottom of the barrel again, just let me know.
Mike, tell everybody how they can follow you, man. Where do they find you at online and stuff?
Yeah, you can find us at www.domainoutdoor.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram as well. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, whatever it is, call us, email us, text us. You'll get a reply back so fast you won't know what to do with it. So we appreciate you guys, and thanks for the kind words. I do appreciate it, and we're going to keep grinding for you. So
Awesome.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to episode number 12 of the Base Camp Country podcast. Don't forget to follow Mike Lindahl and Domain Outdoors on social media, anywhere you can find them, domainoutdoor.com. Don't forget to follow Base Camp Country on Facebook and any social media you have. We're out there everywhere. As always, at Base Camp Country, it's more than just dirt. It's a lifestyle. We will see you guys next week right here on the Base Camp Country podcast.